Isn't business so ironic? Somewhere in the corporate afterlife, a Blockbuster video executive probably just dropped his popcorn. Because in a move that has effectively nuked the traditional Hollywood orbit, little Netflix that were groveling on their hands and knees, begging Blockbuster, buy us. They just signed a definitive agreement to acquire Warner Brothers for 82.7 billion. Except you're under a rock, you probably heard the news. And that's true. The studio that built Hollywood, are you kidding me? The home of Casablanca, Batman, Harry Potter, and The Sopranos, being acquired by Netflix. So let's rewind back into 2000. Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph, if you've heard the story, they fly to Dallas to meet Blockbuster CEO John Antioco, and they are bleeding cash. They offer to sell Netflix to Blockbuster for $50 million. Blockbuster laughs. And they literally laugh at the idea that people want DVDs by mail. Fast forward to December 2025. Blockbuster, a single tourist attraction in Bend, Oregon, versus Netflix, who just wrote a check for 82.7 billion to buy the most prestigious film library on planet Earth. It is a pretty fascinating story, and if you're not excited about just hearing the possibilities of two just normal Americans coming together with an idea, growing an empire that has now eaten so many other firms and is poised to eat one of the biggest iconic firms in Hollywood, if that doesn't get you wildly excited as a creative, I don't know what will. Let's jump into the story and let me break it down. I'm going to be showing you why this is not just an idle acquisition or merger. I'm going to be showing you why this matters to us in the world of music, in the world of creativity. So jumping straight into the dialogue, Netflix acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery represents something more profound than media consolidation. It's a fundamental power transfer in how music achieves cultural relevance. Netflix doesn't need to own a record label to dominate music. By controlling the screens, the franchises, and the algorithms and nostalgia engine, Netflix positions itself as the gatekeeper between musicians and cultural impact. Now, there's a branding confusion that obscures everything. People think Warner Brothers and Warner Music Group are under the same umbrella. That's not true. While they were years ago, over 25 years ago, today they're not. Completely independent, WMG is. It's a publicly traded company, and it's all about artist contracts, streaming royalties, that kind of thing. It's not part of this deal. It is not the same company. It's not been the same company for many years. Now, Warner Brothers Discovery, this is the film studio. We're talking about HBO, Max, streaming, DC Entertainment, huge franchise when it comes to film scores, TV soundtracks, music documentaries, and the stage where music becomes culturally meaningful. So it is important that you look at this as not just an acquisition of film, but with film comes power. And I'm going to break down for you the four pillars of Netflix's music power. If this goes through, if there's no big stink from FTC or others, and it goes through, I'm going to break down for you why this will be one of the most relevant moves in the history of not only film, but also music. Pillar number one, the private vault. Think about it. It's a century full of cinematic music IP. You got to understand that Warner, as Warner Brothers, the film part, has been around for over 100 years. So let that sink in for a little bit. By acquiring Warner Brothers, Netflix is gaining access to all that great stuff, orchestral worlds of Harry Potter, the different eras of the Batman scores, sonic identities of the Matrix, Inception, the DC universe, and Looney Tunes. Everyone knows Looney Tunes, right? So it's not just emotional nostalgia. It's finance. It's taking on a new, in my mind, a new persona. This just amplifies Netflix to no end. So think about it. When Disney bought Lucasfilm, it didn't just gain the right to sell Star Wars stories. It inherited John Williams' themes as reusable corporate assets, now baked into shows, parks, trailers, and marketing without a fresh negotiation every time. Netflix will be doing something similar at that scale. Think about how much they could be saving potentially. Annual savings of anywhere from 50 to 100 million savings in avoided sync fees, 20 to 30 million reduced legal or admin costs, and 100 years of cinematic music IP. The second pillar is the algorithm as Hitmaker. We're talking about engineered music discovery. Now, if they play their cards right, they're probably thinking about this, or maybe they'll watch my video and get clued up. But we've already seen the playbook with Stranger Things and, the Kate Bush running up that hill, a song from 1985, which didn't just come back, it raced up the charts, dominated streaming, and introduced an entire generation to an artist whose peak predicated their birth. Think about it. That wasn't random nostalgia. That was a platform choosing a song giving it the right narrative moment and aiming it at the right audience. Now that's genius. Now imagine this spreading across The Sopranos, The Wire, Game of Thrones, Succession, Friends. The list is endless. If Netflix truly, at the end of the day, controls those shows, it controls the moments where songs get embedded in people's lives. It can mine old catalogs if they're smart, right? Pick tracks with revival potential, feature them in heavily promoted episodes, and let recommendations do the rest. There's a lot of promise if they're able to do the right thing. Now, labels will pitch songs for sync, but Netflix doesn't need to wait for pitches. It can work backwards. It can choose the kind of cultural moment it wants, then engineer the music exposure that fits. It's going to be quite an interesting time if the deal does go through. Now, if it doesn't go through, they'll have to part with $6 billion, but at least these things will be in their clutches for at least a year before whatever's going to happen happens. Moving forward, let's talk about Pillar 3. Music-centric franchises beyond licensing to IP creation. This is where Netflix could move from using music to building around it. Imagine a title like K-pop Demon Hunters. It might sound playful, but the signal is serious. It's a strategy where music genres are not just background elements. They are the business model. Instead of paying to license hits, Netflix can commission original songs. They can wrap them in a cinematic universe and turn that world into series spin-offs, concert experiences, sing-along screenings. I don't even want to give them too many ideas. The list is endless. But in parallel, it inherits HBO's catalog of music documentaries, Woodstock 99, The Defiant Ones, and many more. These projects are not just telling stories. They define legacy. For many artists, a definitive doc is how future generations will understand them. When that entire ecosystem, fictional music franchises and non-fiction music storytelling, sits inside one platform, record labels no longer control the main gateway to prestige and cultural memory. Let's go on to pillar number 4, the nostalgia engine, cultural curation as a business model. Netflix already knows how to keep shows alive long after the original run. When it layers Warner and HBO's historic catalog on top of that capability, it becomes something more than a library. It becomes a curator of what still matters. It's not just about putting old shows in a carousel, it's about timing and targeting. Surfacing Friends when 90s fashion is trending, for example. Highlighting Sopranos when mob stories are resurgent. Promoting Euphoria when a new generation is negotiating identity and anxiety. For artists whose music is embedded in those properties, their catalog fortunes now rise or fall with Netflix's programming strategy. If the platform leans into a particular era, those songs will get a new lease on life. If it buries them, they're going to fade pretty quick. So when you take a look at the big picture of all of these pillars, what you can see is Netflix may not own the master recordings, but it does end up controlling when and if the wider world is reminded that those recordings exist. And if they're smart, they can go way beyond what they already own just by influence. The direct impact on record labels' ownership is minimal. Warner Music Group is independent. Contracts with major artists remain where they are, but Netflix will have the power to decide which songs reemerge, shape which sounds define a generation, control how artist stories are told, and decide where nostalgic attention flows. So, as far as the future for Netflix, I would say that the future is bright. I would say that if they are able to get this to play out, it could be very, very interesting and extremely lucrative. I'm going to put a link below so that you can read all the details. And you let me know what you think. Are you excited about this? Do you feel it doesn't matter to you as a musician or as a creative? I want to wager that it does define a lot of what will happen in the future. Bye for now.